All right, moving on to the next topic. Dr. Welcher is tripping today. So is Alessi.
Are these two images point clouds or 3D images? Are these two?
Those are one and the same thing. They're yes.
I would use them as synonym. Which term of the two do you want to use? Point cloud or 3D images?
Both are fine. It's a 3D image composed of points.
Okay, so let's just call them 3D images so we can do this more quickly. The Lexus and the Chevy Traverse that are depicted there are both 3D images of those vehicles, correct?
Correct.
And Aperture created the 3D images, correct?
Correct.
Sir, did you do these scans and did you personally create these images?
No, one of the assistants at Aperture did.
So you're speaking about what somebody else did at Aperture, correct?
They were doing it at my direction. And for example, the Lexus scan, I showed the photographs. You can see the gentleman that works at Aperture, Mike Morelli, was scanning them for me while I was doing the rest of the inspection. And then the hand scanning of the rear tail light was done by another engineer. I was out there with him doing it, taking measurements. And then same thing with the Chevy Traverse. My
question is, you didn't do the creation of these 3D images, did you?
The individual images, no.
All right, so let's go to these individual images. These are 3D images. Is that your testimony?
Yes.
Let's look at the tail light.
Okay.
That's not a 3D image. That's a Photoshop, isn't it?
Nope.
Oh, so it's your testimony that that tail light is a 3D image.
That absolutely is a 3D image. The way you can tell is when you get up near the chrome, because lasers don't like shiny objects, you start to get a scatter. So see all these dots here? If that was a photo, you wouldn't have these dots.
Let's go to the Chevy Traverse. Let's, Mr. Woke, zero in on the content, yeah. There's grain on that tail light, in the tail light. That's a 3D image of a tail light, isn't it, sir?
They're both 3D images.
Well, I just want to stay with one. That tail light is a 3D image, and one of the ways you can tell is because it's got all that grainy material on it, correct?
Correct.
Now let's go back, Mr. Woke, to the Lexus.
He thinks he's doing something.
Let's now go to the bumper.
But do you want me to explain the difference?
No.
Nope.
Okay.
Thank you.
Shut the.
I would like to go to the bumper.
It's a family show. They got me about
Do
to
you
say
see
something
any
on this.
grainy,
Oh, no, we do not. Shut
predominance
up.
of any grainy image on the bumper?
There's a little bit. So for example, when you get near edges, it has a hard time with edges.
I'm sorry, the bumper cover.
Right.
See the bumper cover up above?
This whole thing is the bumper cover. That's the step pad. That's the rear body panel or the rear deck lid.
I'm talking about the step pad, sir? Just the step pad of the bumper?
Are you asking about just from here to here?
Yep.
Correct.
Yep. Yes. Yes.
The bumper step
Can we
pad.
zoom in on it?
Pardon me?
Can we zoom in on it?
Sure. Do you see any?
Yeah, I see graininess.
Let's go over to...
Right in here. You can see it all through here. You see it through here.
Well, I'm talking about the step pad, not the entire bumper. I'm just talking about the step pad.
Right. So you're zooming in on the bumper.
Right.
The step pad is this structure up here.
We're going to move up. It just takes a while. So your testimony is that is a...
Can you zoom in more?
That's you would like it zoomed in?
Yes, sir.
Sure. Your testimony is that that is a 3D image, not a Photoshopped step bumper cover. Is that correct?
So we have mapped the color over the 3D scans. We used two separate scanners. If you recall, when I got out to Miss Reed's vehicle, that taillight was gone. So we had to replace the taillight.
Talking about the bumper cover, not the tail light.
Okay, I'm explaining the process.
I'm just asking about the bumper cover, not the process.
So focus your answer on the bumper.
That is a laser scan.
Okay, so your
That's a 3D
testimony
model.
is the step part of the bumper cover is a 3D image from a laser scan and it's not a Photoshop. That's your testimony.
Absolutely.
And you didn't perform the work for the 3D that you claim the bumper step-up is. You didn't do that work to produce that depiction, did you, sir? Somebody else in your firm did it.
So this is all done at my direction. The engineers that work for me, so I'm telling them what to do. I'm not the one punching the keys.
That's
I'm
my
saying,
question.
I need you to do this, 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 and this. Use the hand scanner, go scan the light. I need to put this back in because it was missing when we got to it. So, no, I'm not punching the keys.
Okay, so
Okay. Come over, please.
Uh-oh, we got a sidebar. Things are getting testy. Oh, we got our first sidebar. The dock is melting before our eyes. Let's keep it going.
with regard to, no, we don't need him back up, Mr. Wolf. Isn't it correct that 3D images allow for proper and most accurate measurements as opposed to 2D images? Is that a correct general statement?
I mean, generally, yeah.
Okay, that's my question. So let's go to the next topic. Let's talk about hydraulics on the Lexus SUV. What type of hydraulic system does the Lexus SUV have?
So it has a mechanism, I believe it's actually pneumatic. It's air-based system that raises it up and down.
Do you know what the name of that system is, sir?
No, not off the top of my head.
Do you know how it works specifically?
I do. Well, I mean, I know generally that there's a button on the interior where you can raise and lower the ride height.
And is that the extent of your knowledge of that system on the Lexus?
No. Again, I know when you park it, it'll drop down the ride height. When you adjust it for different roadway conditions, it'll change the ride height.
Do you know what the height tolerances are? In other words, the lowest to the highest?
I believe it's around 1.25 inches. At one point in time, I measured it. I don't remember off the top of my head.
So you believe it's 1.25 inches up and 1.25 inches down? How do you apply the 1.25 inches?
I recall the total being like 1.25 inches, but I measured it at one point in time. I just don't remember off the top of my head.
Would you be surprised to hear that the tolerance is 5 inches on that vehicle?
I would be surprised. I don't recall it being that much, but I would need to double check.
Assume that the manual as well as other informations support that the tolerance is 5 inches and that specifically the vehicle can be raised 3 inches high and it can be lowered 2 inches. That's the basis for the 5. What was the suspension height of Miss Reed's Lexus that you used for your accident reconstruction analysis out front at 34 Fairview between 12 a.m. and 1 a.m. on January 29, 2022 to determine whether it was possible for the spoiler on the back of the Lexus to make contact with the eye of Mr. O'Keefe? If it was even possible, what did you use for a measurement of the suspension?
Matched the measurements from when the vehicle was tested, I believe on February 1st at the Canton Police Department.
What match did you make?
So we aligned the bottom of the taillight, actually the sheet metal right below the taillight. So we adjusted the height of the Lexus to match that.
Did you in any place document what level the Lexus was at the time of any testing, meaning the suspension? Did you document at all?
Yes.
Where?
Slide 107.
Can we have slide 107, Mr. Wolf?
And then if you could zoom in on the lower photograph, the gentleman with the blue shirt. Zoom in a little more, please. So if I may, we matched the bottom of the sheet metal here to photographs when it was at the Canton Police Department.
Sir, my question is, where did you document whether the suspension was at 0, whether it was +3 or -2? Where did you document that?
Right here.
And what are the numbers of the documentation of that?
I don't know. We were matching the photos. So I don't care what the numbers are. I care that the height is the same.
Okay, so I just heard you say, if I heard correctly, you don't care what the suspension is at. Is that your testimony?
No, I don't care what the suspension number is as long as the heights match.
I understand. I understand. So
Interesting. That seems like that would be pertinent information.
what was the suspension height of
But hey, I'm
Ms.
not an
Reed's
engineer.
Lexus
Not
at
even close.
5:07 a.m. on January 29th, 2022, while at One Meadows and colliding with the Chevy Traverse? What was the suspension height then?
We assumed it was the same as when it was at the Canton Police Department.
Exactly. You assumed, but there's no measurement like
Come
was just
on,
on
man.
that depiction. There was no note that said, okay, we're doing this very important and inches sensitive measurements to see whether the tail light on the Lexus makes contact with the Traverse, but there's no measurement
This
and
expert's
no
assuming.
documentation of what the suspension height was at One Meadows, correct?
So we took the closest measurement in time to the Mun Meadows event, which is when it was at the Canton Police Department. That was the best information we had.
Well, that information isn't very good because the vehicle had to go from Canton to One Meadows, and when the vehicle drives, the way the suspension system works, it's automatic. When you go above 20 miles an hour, the suspension comes up, and when you turn off
Amy
the
was
vehicle,
talking about
it
this
goes
this
down
morning.
so you can get out easier. So
Yep.
it would be improper to assume that the suspension at One Meadows would be the same at another location.
That's the only, sorry.
Range Rovers do the same thing.
Go ahead and answer.
Lots of other cars
That's
do
the
the
extent
same
of the
thing.
information we had. We had it when it was at the Canton Police Department.
That's-
We matched that height.
Sorry, sir. I understand.
An expert assuming, get him out of here.
But actually, you brought up a good point. It's going so slow when it's backing up that it wouldn't raise up. So the static position when it's backing up would be the static position.
But it wouldn't be going in back
Stop,
up
Doc,
from
stop.
the Canton Police Department to One Meadows. It wouldn't be going back up when it's going in other locations, sir, right? It would be driving forward. It had to get from point A to point B.
Right, but as you pointed out, when you turn it off, it drops down, and then you turn it on, and then once you go above 20, as you indicated, it goes up. But when she's backing up, she never goes more than a couple miles an hour. So it's going to be at the same position as when you start, which is approximately the same position when it's off at the Canton Police Department a couple days later.
Do you know whether the suspension system locks when there is testing of the infotainment system?
Uh-oh.
Whether the suspensions, I don't know.
Okay. Let's go on
Oh,
to
my.
the next topic.
He doesn't know. On to
You're
the next
aware
topic.
of